Okay, so let's get back to the response object. Uh, Please let me know if there are any problems with the recording or the screen, anything. Please let me know as soon as possible. Okay, so we discussed that the two methods that we have used from the request from the response object are set content type and get writer. We want to look at the response API and see what are the other methods here that we can use. We have add header, add cookie, add output stream, and set content length and send error as well. There are actually a couple of more methods that are not very widely used. Okay, so if you're creating let's say a web application for an online shopping or a library or whatever, chances are that you don't really need these methods except for getWriter and set content type. But anyhow, we're going to look into some of them. So we use set content type to tell the browser, to tell the client what content we're going to send to it. Okay. HTML is not the only content. We have text, we have images, we have PDF. As a matter of fact, we will see today that we can actually send content as an Excel file. So our content could be an Excel sheet. So if we have more advanced content, you can give the name here. Also, today we're going to see how we can download a file using a servlet. We can set and add headers with the response object. If we know the error code, we can send an error code. If we know the status code, we can set the status code. Request dispatching and redirect are two concepts that we may have used briefly in the past, but we will discuss them in the next week. So as we saw with the request object, we could use the get input stream. If we want to use print simple strings like this to the browser, we will use getWriter. We don't need anything else. But if you want to use any other text data or if you want to use character stream, you can use this method, get output stream. But most of the time, it's enough to use getWriter and you will not need this method here. But if you do want to print bytes to the browser, this is the way to do it. Response get output stream and then out.write whatever byte array that you have you want to display. So let's look at the content type. So as I said before, this is the content type that we usually use, text HTML. But if you look on the right-hand side, you will see that there are plenty of other contents. For example, if you have a PDF, or if you have a QuickTime video, an image, zip file, we will use this also to download a zip file. We'll see how that works. There are actually more content types other than text or HTML that you can use. I have a table. If you want to refer to it, you can. So what I want to show you now, in the slides, I have provided codes for you. You can see how you can download a zip file by using the set header method in the response object. Here, basically, you can choose what is the name of the file that is going to be downloaded. Here is basically the path to the file that you're going to make available to be downloaded. And you will have to store it, read it, and store it as bytes. So you will need to have a loop. This code will show you as an example that you can use to download a zip file. I'm going to demonstrate to you a different example where you can display, where you can download a simple file. Okay, so let me go back to my Eclipse. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new, so let me get rid of this and close this one. We're not going to need this. I want to create a web application. I want to create a simple text file and I want to make that available for download. Okay, so let's create a new project, dynamic project. Download file. Call it download file. Yeah, everything is fine here. Next. Do I need an XML, web.xml? Not here. No, we don't need it. Okay, open source. Okay, what I need is first I want to have a servlet. We use the response object to set the content type and set the header, and then we will have a while loop to read that download, the file to be downloaded, and write it to the output string. Okay, so let's go ahead, add a servlet here. Let's call this one download demo. Next. This name is actually fine. Let me change it to simply download. Next. All right, so where I'm going to go inside my do-get. I don't really need the first line here. So as I said before, the first thing is I want to set the content, response.set content. Content type. I want to download a simple text file. So let me actually, before that, let me create my editor and create a text file. And later I will make that available for download. This file is going to, this is just a plain text. All right, so let me store this somewhere. We call this plain.txt. And later we can actually give a different name when we're making it available for download. We can give a different name. So as we saw here in the response.setHeader, this is where we can actually change the name. Okay, whatever we choose. So I'm going to store the file as plain.txt. Okay, I don't need it now. Let me minimize this one. Set content text. It's going to be plain. And now we have to set response.setHeader. Okay, this part is very important. You have a name and you have a value. The name, remember, for download, you need to remember it's called content hyphen disposition. Let me check it. Content disposition. The value for that, I'm going to call it attachments semicolon. Oops, sorry. Semicolon. Then the file name equals to, so let's call it sample.txt. Okay. So remember, content disposition is the name and the value, attachment, file name, sample.txt. You can provide any name that you like. This is the name of the file that will be downloaded by the client. Next thing, we need to copy this file somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to copy it in webinf. So let me open this one here. Let's see. Let's see if I can drag and drop this here. Where is the webinf? Okay, it's here. Okay, I think it's fine. Yeah, copy file. I don't need a link. Yeah, so the plain text is inside the webinf. Double check. Yeah, sure. All right, so now we need to have to get the full path address to this file. In order to do that, I'm going to get the servlet context get servlet. You will see how this is going to be used. Let me just import the package. Okay, then two things we need to do. Okay, first of all, we need to be able to read this file byte by byte, and we will have to do the same thing by writing it. So one input stream to read the file, one output stream to write the file to the client. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll have one input stream, one output stream. The input stream, we call it in stream, equals to, so here's, I'm going to use the context.get resource as a stream. This is why I use the context object, because it can get this file to me as a stream. Stream means as bytes, okay? Stream of byte. So now I have to give the path to the file. Where is the path? It's in my double webinf. So I'm going to say web-inf. The name of the file is plain.txt. Got to be careful with the names not to make mistakes, and add this package. Like I said, once we read this, we will have to write this as well. So output stream. I don't need a context anymore for this. Response dot get output stream. Okay, let me add the package. Okay, so before I start my while loop, I need to define an array of bytes to get all that string. So we convert this basically to bytes so that we can read it and write it. Call it buffer equals to new bytes. We also have to give it a size, okay? So depending on the size of your file, let me define a value here, a fixed value. So therefore, I'm going to make it a final integer. Call it arbitrary. Because this is not a very big file, I can just choose a small number, let's say 1048. But if you have a bigger files, then you need to increase this number. So 1048 should be more than enough for this simple plain text. Then what I'm going to do is I will start a while loop and byte read. You will see that we will have to use this argument as well when we write the output stream. We set it to -1. We'll see how this works now. While byte read equals to in string dot read buffer, which is the name of the bytes. It should not be -1. -1, just like the example before, means that it's the end of the file. Bytes read. So what's wrong here? Let me see. Oh, actually, it's bytes. So let me change this to bytes read. All right. And then we have to write it byte by byte, write. So most important thing is buffer. Okay, so we little by little we want to add whatever we read from this plain text to the buffer. So buffer offsets, let's say 0. We don't worry about this now because this is a little complicated concepts about bytes, offset, and length. It's red. All right, so this is it. The only thing I have to do now is to close the in stream and out stream. All right. So let me just go through everything to make sure that spellings are correct. Content disposition, attachments, arbitrary size. So usually when you are downloading something, right, you need to have a link, right, an ahref, a link. You click the link and basically you start to download. So let me create a JSP for that or a simple HTML. So right click here, a JSP. Where is JSP? Down link. Okay, so I will do something very simple, just an ahref to download file, click here. So let me put this one outside. Make it look more realistic. Oops, sorry, this one should be a okay. Click here. href is going to be the name of the URL mapping, not this one. If you remember, we changed the name to download. Okay. So I'll copy this one here, download. To download the file, click here. Yep, this is it. So let me go back here, check everything. All right, so I'm going to run this one. Finish. This might be very useful. I don't know about your application, whatever your assignment is doing, the assignment you're doing, but some of you might need this, might have this feature for a user to download something. So let me see if this is going to work. So I'll run this. Click here. All right. Yeah, so as you can see, this is the name that I provided before, sample, the name that I wrote here, sample.txt. And if I go back here, you will see that the format is also text because I defined it to be as text. It says where you want to store it. I'm going to say desktop, save it. Let's make sure that the file has been read completely because we wrote something inside it. Yeah, this is the exact file that we wrote. Okay, so let me close this one. And also this one needs to be closed. On your slides, if you go to your slides, I have given you information. I've given you this program that basically shows you how to download a zip file. The procedure is pretty much the same. I mean, the size is increased a little bit based on the content you want to download, but the content type for a zip file is octet stream. Whereas when we were downloading a simple file, we just had a very simple content type, text plain. Okay, so remember the differences, but the rest is pretty much the same. Okay. The other interesting things that you can do with the response object is you can basically set the content type to vnd.msxl, and that will basically open the Excel file if the client has an Excel Office, Microsoft Office and Excel. This will cause the Excel to open and basically do this simple function here. So we have some values for apples and oranges, and we're actually doing a very simple function, summation of all these numbers, apples and oranges. That's another simple things, and this will be the output. The Excel will be opened with these headers and these values, and also, as you can see, the sum of these numbers, as we did here, will also be displayed. So these are the headers. This is the second row and third row, and these are the functions. So in case you need to provide Excel content in your web application, you can use this content type. Other things, other contents you can use is images. Okay, so image is also another common thing. This time your content type, actually not this one, it should be this one, image slash JPEG. You can use an AWT package to create some graphics and display it on the browser, not a problem. Other interesting methods are add headers and set headers. There is a difference between the two that I'm going to show you. So we can set response headers and we can add response headers. There's a subtle difference between the two, which is set header overrides the existing value and add header adds an additional value. If we look at this example here, have a look at this slide and see if you can understand the difference between add header and set header. Have a read. So here we're adding a header called x. Okay. So the first time x will equal to 5, then we set another header. Therefore, now we have two headers. Next time we set header, but we don't have two headers because what I said before, set overwrites. Set header overwrites. Therefore, this second command is going to change the value of x to 10. Now we say y because y doesn't exist. Y is going to be added to our parameters. But if we say add header, even though y is already existing, because it's an add header, it's going to create another y whose value equals 10. That's the difference between set header and add header. Content disposition we already looked at. That's some common response headers we can use. Actually, we use this one for basically downloading a file. But something very important that we haven't looked at yet, and it's going to be used, I think, in most of your web application, is how to create a simple login file, a login form. I think most of you, is there anyone here who has a login file for his assignments? Anybody using a login for assignments? Is there anybody here who's using a login form for his assignments? I guess most of you will have some sort of authentication, right? Authentication is very important nowadays. Most of your accounts, in order to use them, you have to log into it. That will require you to enter a username and a password. if you're a member of any website. We want to see a very simple example of a login form using Eclipse. So let me go back to Eclipse, and this time we're going to create a new form, new dynamic web project. Let's call it login. If you have any questions during demonstration, please do not hesitate to ask. For this one, I will use web.xml, but I'm not going to generate it here. I prefer to do it manually because of a little problem that Eclipse, this version of Eclipse has with web.xml. What is the first thing I have to do for a login? Obviously, I need to create a simple HTML form to have two text boxes to get the username and a password. So I'm going to source new, add a JSP file. We call it, let's say it's the home page, home.jsp. Next. Okay, this is going to be a simple one form. I will add the attributes later. So we will have a username and a password. Obviously, between the two, we will have a break. Then username is going to be inputs type text. What else? Action, of course. We don't know the name. Oh, we don't have a servlet yet, so I'm gonna leave this blank until we know what the name is. Actually, this is going to go here. My mistake. Action, also method. What should be the value of method for login? Can anybody tell me? What should be the value of method here? Should it be get? Can I put get here? Is it okay? Is it okay to use get here? Okay, let me leave this blank. Whenever you know the answer, let me know. Type text. Actually, this is going to be input. Type text. Name. We say username txt. I'm gonna copy one more for password. The type is going to be password because we don't want to display the text. This one is pass txt. And finally, we will have a submit type. We call it submit button. Okay, our form is almost complete. So you don't know the answer. This must be post, obviously, because we're sending some important and sensitive information to the server, which is the password. So I can't use get here. Action, we don't know. We have to create the servlet first. So I'm going to add a servlet. Let's call the servlet, I don't create a package, authentication or authenticate. Authentication. Okay, next. This one, I can call it simply login. So now we know the name. Let me copy this for our method, for our action, right? So I'm going to go back here and the action is going to be this. It's giving us some no end tag. There is an end tag. Oh, sorry. This has to be removed. Now it's gonna be fine. Okay, so let me go to authentication. The first thing we have to do, obviously, we don't go here, and I'm not going to call do get because things are going to be done here. Response dot set content type text HTML print writer because we want to display some message if the user authentication is fine, we just display it to the user. Print writer out equals to response dot get writer. This needs to be imported. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, let's say the password. Okay, usually what you will do, so for the first assignment, you're not going to use database, right? So if you want to set some password, you can set it as in a web.xml file. So I will go here, create a web.xml file, and we can actually define the passwords there, web.xml. What I will need is let me get the contents of web.xml from somewhere. Where do we have it? Yeah, I think we have it here, not here. Maybe here. Let me check. Guess there is, yeah, there is one. All I need is just this part on the top. I'm gonna go here and copy it there. Close it. So we want to define a servlet context parameter. How do we do it? Anybody remembers? We say context param, right? Param name. We have param value. Right? We have done this before, if you remember earlier. Context param name, param value. So this time name of the parameter is going to be password. We set a password. It's not very secure, but let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in this example, we want to get the password from here. We check if the user has entered the correct password. Okay, so we go back to our file, we get the password. So now let's retrieve the password from the context. How do we get the parameter from the context? It's not difficult. We use servlet context. How do we use servlet context? So get servlet context, right? What's wrong with that? No, this is not a type. So let me just get rid of this for now. Get servlet context. Okay, dot get init parameter. Because we know the name. What is the name? The name is, we called it, what did we call it? We called it password. The name of the parameter is password. We want to retrieve it. Because this is going to retrieve a string. It's not, it's actually what we want is a string. String pass equals to, let's convert it to string. Make sure what we get back is a string. Now what we want is we want to get the password that the user enters. User pass. And then we will compare it. Whatever the user enters, if it matches this one, we can send the user, we can say the user is valid. If the password doesn't match, we say the user is invalid. Okay. So I'm going to say user pass is, again, it's going to be a string, right? We will get it from, this time we get it from the request, right? Get parameter, because we have the name. Where's the, can anybody tell me what should I write here? Can anybody tell me which name should go here? We have to look at the form, right? It's this one, pass txt. This is the parameter name I'm trying to access within quotations. Okay, so what we got to do now is we say if pass dot equals, let's say if user pass, if what the user types is exactly the same as the password that we used in the context, servlet context, the web.xml, then we will do something else. We will do something else. If the user prints the correct password, we will send him to a welcome page and we will basically type the user name. Else, we will display an error message. We're going to talk about request dispatcher in the next week, but I'm going to use a simple example here because I know most of you will have to use this for your assignments. But we will study the request dispatcher in detail in the next week. So now we will just see how to send the user to another page. Let's say request dispatcher equals to request. I think we have used this before. Get request, sorry, get request dispatcher. This will be the path to the servlet file, okay? And then what we have to do is we just forward the user dot forward. We send request and response. So request and response objects will be available in this path, whatever the servlet file is here. The request and response object will be available there. Else means that the password is incorrect. Okay, so we will basically, what I'm going to do, create another request dispatcher here. This time, I don't want to send a user somewhere else. I just want to include some content and an error message. Therefore, I will use include instead of forward, and we'll simply type a message. Sorry, you are not an authorized user. And then we can basically display username. Okay, we haven't got the username, so let me retrieve the username. We don't have a username. We have the password. So let me create another string. What is the name of the username? We called it ustxt. So here I'm going to say ustxt. And I can display this name over there. What's wrong with it? User, okay, sorry, user name. Control C here. We don't have a path yet. We need to create another, let's say, further welcome. Let's say we will have a welcome.jsp if the username is correct. Sorry, here. If the username is incorrect, we will just stay where we are, which is this page, home.jsp. We won't change the location. JSP. What we have to do next is to create a welcome.jsp that we don't have yet. So I'm gonna go here, source, add a servlet. We call it welcome. Next. Welcome will be very simple. So in the do-get, we just want to welcome the user. Response.set content type going to be text, HTML, right? We just want to print a simple message. Print writer out equal to response get writer. Okay. Out.println welcome. Like I said before, because we have sent this one here, look, we're sending the request and response object. Therefore, this username is available even here. Okay, so I'm gonna say welcome request dot get parameter. What is it? ustxt. Okay, so you have a little exercise for this week, which is to write this program by yourself and see if you can run it. Okay, So write this program by yourself and make sure you can run it. And I know most of you will have to do it for your assignments. So this will be a good exercise for you to do. Also, I need to tell you that, so let me just tell you your assignment is due on 2nd of May. Please don't forget that. You will need to send your codes to my email. No need for reports. If you have any questions, please reach me out. I will try to fix my QQ. Hopefully, that will not be a problem. Anyway, I will be in touch with you. Thanks for coming and see you very soon. All right, everyone. Bye bye.